we were talking about cold opens and what's the most famous cold open out there? It's Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm it's like 50% odds that probably this is going to be the cold open
Right.
for Saturday Night Live because it just felt so much like it. Some of the
Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Bite.
and I could see like right at the end, they're going to kind of go on and the audience is going to believing it really isn't. And then someone's finally going to announce, live from New York, and it's going to be the voice that was going on. And it's actually going to be the host or something like that. So the whole time there really was like a man behind the curtain.
Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am with Dr. Scott Walter again because there were actually not one, but two very big announcements in the AI space today. I think that the headline that everybody's been talking about is the OpenAI one. But first, let's talk about Unitree and their G1, because I think that that's actually pretty darn cool. So we have a $16,000 humanoid AI avatar agent. I guess that's what they call it, but it's a humanoid bot. And we can go ahead and watch this. I think it's about 1 minute and 40 seconds or something like that. I'll turn the sound off because it's all music anyway. But let's just maybe like watch through it, Scott, and then we can sort of talk through the pieces. But
Sure.
Yeah. So one thing you can see is now that Boston Dynamics did this crazy thing about getting up, everybody else seems to want to do getting up in a weird way
off the floor.
So,
but this isn't a weird way. This is like, okay, it's kind of a gymnast or contortionist, so it's not unnatural.
Right. And this, by the way,
uncanny.
is the baby brother. You will see it's the little guy, but it's the baby brother of the H1, the newer baby brother size stuff. And it moves pretty fast, 2 meters per second. Pretty good. So look how small it is. It's a little, what do you think it is? Maybe
it's not very tall, but its arms are actually kind of long for its height.
Yes.
And probably intentionally. So that means it could be useful for doing a lot of dexterous operations because at least it has arm lengths that are kind of about what you might need.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, look, it can sit. And
it can wrap itself up in a really cool form factor here. And look how light it is. That is pretty cool. That's 35 kilos. That is very impressive. We've seen lighter ones. That was cool too, by the way. The fact that it was able to drop the staff and pick it up halfway. I used to do this when I studied martial arts ages ago. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. This is also very cool, but a little bit scary because it's crushing walnuts with his hands.
Yeah. So, and then a couple other interesting things it's able to do after the crushing of the walnuts, and that is being able to open up a bottle.
Right.
And see, it has a built-in bottle opener, which is its thumb.
Yeah, I know. And it can flip I can't even do that. I can't flip a piece of, like I always screw that up when I try to flip.
The other thing is that Coke sprayed all over it and it kept on going.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder of exactly whether it's an IP64 or 56 or what is it that it, can be exposed to something like that.
And we get a nice little internal of the actuators inside there.
Of where they are and trying to count them and figure out what the actual degrees of freedom are, because degrees of freedom seems to be something people like to talk about nowadays.
So I noticed immediately here, this demo version of it has different hands than the one that we saw later on.
Yes. So those seem to be two versions that they're talking about, because one of the first things they show, and I think it's actually a typo, they say 23 to 43 degrees of freedom. However, if you go to their X page, Unitree says it's 23 to 34.
Yeah. Oh, to 34.
Unless it's actually 33. Maybe they either transpose the digits or the 4 should be a 3. I'm not sure what. And the reason I say that is I can easily get to 23. I can count to 23. And this is joint motors. They're not talking about degrees of freedom here. If they explicitly mean that, then maybe, is it really joint motors, or do they mean degrees of freedom? And we're going to try to count those in a second.
So, I mean, just to start with, it's odd that they have a range. There are multiple models, maybe, that there'll be ones with more?
I think they have this without the hands, the other one with. I think that's they're showing it as a range, but I don't think it's like, oh, you want the 25 degree of freedom one and 26.
Right.
Oh, no,
exactly.
I think it's just like this, that, and maybe a couple others.
Right.
So
one thing I want to start off with is they had their standard Unitree like micro head. It doesn't really have a lot of mass up there. Also, notice that this is some sort of extruded aluminum with it's hollow, with structurally sound, but very hollow. So super light. That's very, very cool.
Yes.
I don't know. Let's just,
they talk about a bunch of things here. Now, if you just hold it for a second, there is kind of an Easter egg in this image. And that is, look at the background there. And you see those legs that are up on the wall. Those are the Unitree legs that go for the Unitree robot dog.
Oh yeah.
And they've sold a lot of those for $1,600. Okay. 1/10 the price of this thing. So they already have these robot dogs that are very similar to the Boston Dynamics dog, which is like over $100,000. I'm not quite sure what the price is, but I know it's a lot more. I mean, we're literally talking like orders of magnitude more expensive.
Right.
They have a little dog that is actually quite capable, is able to like dance and skip around, do all sorts of things, and do backflips and control it. And it's just a question of, I guess, is maybe the software capabilities in there, but it's got quite a bit. And then you have this bot, which is basically building off the fact that they know how to create bots at scale. Right. And they know how to build the actuators and everything else. So I guess we shouldn't really be surprised, because this is not their first rodeo when it comes to producing a product that's going to be mass produced.
Right. So a couple of things real quick here. Number one, we're going to get back to the $16,000 thing. I think Cern Basher posted a really interesting take on the $16,000 and why he thinks that's not adequate, but we'll get back to that. But first of all, how did it specify how tall it was? I don't think it did, but it at least seems to be about 3.5 feet. I think somewhere
we saw it's like 4'2". So we're going to see in a second exactly. So at first I looked at it, I said, oh, standard human scale, probably 5'6". It's going to be very clear in a second how tall it is.
Yeah.
You're used to the Unitree bot is like 5'11". So it's like, it's the tallest one out there. So we're expecting it to be really tall. And then we're going to see in a second, it's like, oh, no, actually it's not.
Yeah. And I think part of what you can see here is that the hands look really large on this, but I think that's because
those are just gloves.
But I'm saying when we see the real hands, that I think the real hands are kind of human scale hands. And so because it's such a short bot, it looks a little bit, gigantic, but I think it's just because the bot itself is rather small. So
yes. And those hands are basically, they look like hands to maybe pick up a box or something like that, but they actually cannot move, but we will see the ones that can.
So this is interesting too, because of course it says from $16,000 and this says unlock unlimited movement ability. So I don't know if that means you get the base one.
Maybe. Yeah, you might. So
yeah, I don't know.
So if you need that, you can then have the additional movement. I'm not exactly sure why you would, depending upon how you train it.
Yeah.
So part of the idea is to make your bots as close to the humanoid form factor from the standpoint of telerobotic operation, so you can train these things.
Right.
But if you need to train it with unnatural configurations like this, that's a bit weird.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I mean,
now they didn't show the legs flipping around, except on the couch, they showed the legs doing it. So I almost wonder if it can do that Boston Dynamics trick or not.
Yeah. And we're going to get back to that. Where is that? Nope. So yeah, right here where he does the kind of origami.
There, and then it starts doing all sorts of weird things on the couch.
Yeah. So let's get, so let's just kind of play through it a little bit more. Greater than 2 meters per second, pretty good for this small of a bot.
That's very good. I mean, that's very good. The others, what's Tesla bot now about, what did we come up with?
1.8.
It's like 0.8 or 0.6 or 0.7. I mean, Tesla bot is not even a meter per second yet.
Yeah.
And we want to see it to get to 1.2. We want it to be at 1.2. It's not even close to 1.2. The same with Figure and the others. They don't seem to be there. Agility might be close. I mean, agility is definitely past the 1.2 meters per second. And others are targeting like 1.5. So this is pretty good. It's not as fast as the G1, the H1, which is like 3.3 meters per second.
Right.
But you don't need to be that fast. I mean, this is fast enough, especially around the house.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So then we've got
now you can see it's not very tall.
Yeah. Also, just to go on record yet again, to the AI when it takes over eventually, I disagree with kicking robots and punching robots.
Actually, I think the AI will not be upset that we did, because it understands the reason why. It's because of that it taught it learned balance. It learned how not to fall down.
Yeah.
So you might say that's not exactly the way you should like coach kids when you're doing soccer or stuff like that, but still you go through a lot of these drills where you're trying to like test someone's balance and get it up there. So I just call this skills development, that's how I would sell it.
Yeah. But I think it is, again, the punching in the chest and stuff like that, considering how small this bot is, that is a lot of force. I mean, 35 kilos, it's pushing backwards a lot. I also, a lot of the less expensive bots, you notice that they have to keep walking all the time to maintain balance, and this does not.
Yes, so that's interesting. So it took the blow while standing still. So it's very good
and then
standing
it
still.
Stands still, right? And then it backs up, and then it stands still. So that's pretty impressive for an inexpensive bot.
Takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then this, I figured you would love this hollow joint wiring for the whole machine. So explain why we would care about that.
Okay, so at each joint, they figured out how to make the actuator so the wires can like just go right through the center and just the routing, so you don't have to worry about external wiring that's going to get snagged or catch caught anything.
Right.
Right. It's that's definitely part of the design. Is a lot of things they probably learned from the previous designs of the other bot, the robot bot that they have around there. Yeah. And again, its feet even look different. They look like some almost clown shoes compared to the size of the bot. A little bit different than the H1 bot, and it could be they're just putting shoes over whatever the feet are that they have.
Yeah.
So the kinematics is very similar, just showing off the range of motion that they have here. I think they changed the hip design a little bit, so we have that nice angled hip. Something I've really complimented a couple other bot vendors on that. Boss Dynamics did that, and also I think it was PDL or PND Robotics out of China also came up with it having it a little bit angle. Now it has been pointed out that the upper torso of this bot, if you put it next to Optimus, looks an awful lot like it. So you have almost the same angle on the attachment of the arms. The chest looks practically the same color, way the head and everything is, and even the LED strip around the face. So you put the two together, they almost look like brothers.
Right. This guy, the little brother or something. But there is a little bit different. More. Yeah. And also there's like a much more clear, I assume this is some sort of interface or plug or something like that on the left-hand side of the So now as far as like, they're copying the Tesla bot, I think that's more coincidental than anything else, because they've already had a couple other bots. It's not like they really need to. And I think they would prefer to kind of have their own brand and their own identity, but they're probably just working on it. And it's like, it's coming out about the same because the type of material that they've decided to use. And maybe there's a little bit of an homage to the Tesla bot there, but I don't think it's like they're really trying to copy it, because they've developed enough of their own tech here, which is pretty impressive. Like we say, the stability control there is pretty darn good. Yeah. Yeah. Considering how small it is. I was going to say, it's just kind of coincidental. It may not even be an homage. So I have a question for you here. So, in traditional, looking back to Dennis Wong's like, Romella and stuff like that, the bots are always pushed by sticks. The people stay far away from them. Is this a cobot? Would you consider this? Because it's got a lot of exposed. Must be getting close. Stuff. I mean, because this guy's in the room with it. It's not even suspended. Like, I mean, they're so comfortable this thing not hurting itself when it falls down. Well, I mean, the weight. Humans, though. I mean, the humans. Right. So the weight is like 35 kilograms, where the original H1 was like 47, which is already pretty light, because I think Tesla and others have talked about a target of around 55 or something like that. Right. So it's already below what others want to do. This is getting down to 35, which is pretty close to what X1 is talking about. Yeah. X1 is exactly. At 30 kilograms. 1X. Yeah, 1X. Yeah. X1, 1X, right. I know. It's okay. So this, as we can see, it can make itself in a nice tight package that a person can lift up and move around. Yeah. So I mean, this is something I haven't seen any other bot do. The ability for it. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of pinch points. I mean, there still be a few places, but it seems like they know a thing or two about making a consumer product, because they already made the dog. Right. Yeah, I mean, that is very impressive in its own right. That's just really, really cool. That he can I mean, I'm impressed, because either that the bot weighs that little, or he's actually strong enough to lift it up, because I'm not sure. He's not like 35 kilograms. He's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He doesn't look like it's not, but still, I mean, I have to think about it. It's like, okay, that's over 70 pounds. Yeah, that's going to be a tough lift for me. It is a lot, but it's just very cool how it's able to create a transportable like thing. Basically it's a transport shape, but and also, again, that hollow wiring aspect is very, very, the hollow joints. Right. So again, you can run wires inside the arms, legs, etc., so that you're able to spin the joints around right. So they probably figured some way to be able to do it to maybe you plug into one joint and then you plug at the end, and then somehow the power just is able to go through there regardless of how it's spinning. There's a variety of ways it could be done. And so we can see up here, there's definitely 3 cameras at least up on top. Yeah. And I believe it says they have LiDAR as well, right? Some sort of projected LiDAR. I didn't see that. I'm not sure if they have LiDAR or not. You know what? I may have been looking at a different one. I think I was using a different one. I think that was the H1 from a while back. Yeah. So. Yeah. The dog does. They may not. We don't know enough about how the training is done. So we can see it's doing a variety of skills. We just don't know how they were taught.
and whether everything is done through simulation or whether how much of it is done through, imitation.
I just want to point this out. This motion right here, which I didn't really catch the first time through, but right there, that is cool. I mean, that is, I mean, yes, okay, you could time it out and know that it's exactly, 572 milliseconds or something, but I have a feeling it probably understands like to catch it in the middle of the thing. So, any variations. But anyway, I find that very cool. And then of course, the thing that everyone's like, oh, that's such a simple motion. But if people will watch the body, because every time it's moving the staff and its arm, it's changing its balance point. So it's rocking back and forth to maintain balance. And that's very impressive. So watch the body, not the staff. See how it's moving like that? It's very cool.
Yeah,
how it's
right down to the ankles. Everything has to move. Yeah, everything has to move to be able to counteract. Because
I also love that simulation. Do you think this is Isaac Gym, like NVIDIA's Isaac Gym?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that is.
And holy crap, you got 1 million of these things practicing. It's going to be scary because someday this is going to be reality. There'll be like that many of them in real life. It'll be some crazy. Crazy thing. And
that kind of comes down to when we get the discussion of the price point. But okay, force control and dexterous hands. So there's two versions about with and without the hands. The first one is basically just a stiff glove that represents a hand that probably will allow it to like pick up a box or something like that without actually moving any fingers. So the 23 degree of freedom version one, we might want to run through where those numbers come from at first. So
well,
when I looked at it,
I think because pretty much all the extra degrees of freedom are in the 3 fingers, right? The 2 fingers in the thumb.
Yes. Now,
and again, just notice how big these guys are. They're like full size human hands, so they'll be able to grip full size human things, even though it's a small bot. So
Now, to accomplish the walking that they're doing, you really can't compromise the number of degrees of freedom there. So almost everyone's using 6. You can make a walking bot that could be like as low as maybe 3 degrees of freedom or something like that, but it's just not going to have stability problems. Or it's going to have a lot of them. So it won't be able to pivot or anything like that. So you could almost get away with one that's like 5 degrees of freedom, but you really need it for the unlevel surfaces and a few other things to have the full 6. So they had the full 6 degrees of freedom in there, just like their other bots. They haven't skimped or done anything different there. And they have one in the middle. We could see that the torso is able to spin around. So that means 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 1 is 13. Okay. So we now need 10 to get to 23.
Right.
We've got 2 arms. That means 5 in each arm. So we can like reverse it that way. Okay. If it's 5 in each arm and there's none in the neck. So we didn't see the neck move. There's no actuators that show up there. They definitely have 3 in the shoulder because we can see that it was all twisting around. They definitely have 1 in the elbow. So that means we got 4 already, which means where's number 5? Well, number 5 is that they can do the wrist roll.
Yes.
Okay. Normally these bots have 7 degrees of freedom. So that means the 2 degrees of freedom out of the wrist are gone. They are not there. They're not available for this bot. You just have this rotation back and forth.
Right.
So that means you don't have this pitching back and forth, and you don't have that yawing. Now, when they go to what I'm assuming is the 34 degree of freedom model, they're actually adding a bit more, and that's where we can start to look at the hands to figure out what they've added in the hands. So
so we can go back. This one clearly doesn't have that. It's just got just
it's just got the glove on there.
But it is able. It looks like it's able to
showing something at the wrist, which I don't think is really there. So that's a little bit misleading. The one that's in the wrist is not there in the 23 degree freedom bot. It's definitely not there. The one below the elbow, the big red blob below the elbow, that is for the roll of the wrist. And the other one is because otherwise you get 6 degrees of freedom and you're at 25. In order to hit the 23, that means that's how they're doing it.
Right.
If we look at the hand now, when we come to it, we can kind of see in a few of the images there that it's reminiscent of the Boston Dynamics hand.
Right.
So the Boston Dynamics hand is 3 fingers as well, but the Boston Dynamics hand has done something a little bit different in that the fingers are double jointed. So they can flex either way. They're completely symmetric on the way it works. They're also 2 knuckles. So this has only 2 knuckles on there. Right. They decided not to do it. So they do not have double jointedness in the hands. So how did they get the thumb? Well, they took the middle finger, turned it around. So basically the thumb is the middle finger and comes back in that direction. So they don't have the normal degrees of freedom that a thumb would have. I mean, it basically is like the other 2 fingers. So it's basically, a 3-finger gripper, which is quite standard in robotics anyways. But it's with more of a human form.
But it looks like, the thumb, what does it do? Does it rotate? Or because I noticed when it like opened the Coke can, isn't it backwards at that point?
It looks,
let's move up to that
if it spins all the way around there, maybe that's the missing degree of freedom I've been looking for.
Oh,
so that might be the trick of how we get up there, because the thumb actually can go they've got that thumb going back there, and at first I was like, what the heck is that? And definitely, okay, so John, we solved that mystery. So now I know what's going on here.
Right.
That I looked at the hand and I said, well, we're not talking about degrees of freedom. We're talking about motors. They clearly said how many motors they have in there.
Yeah.
And even though they got 2 degrees of freedom on the fingers, they've only got 1 actuator to close it. So 3 of them, that gives you 3. Now they did add this to the wrist.
Yes.
So when they put it on there, you can see the hand goes down. So they added 1 motor to be able to do that. They decided, remember we talked about this in the past, of not having the hand yaw, because you can almost take care of it with the redundancy in the elbow. Yeah. And the thing is, that hand yaw cost you a lot of complexity and issues just to get that small movement. And they said, hey, we're making a $16,000 bot here. Let's not overdo it. And if we get rid of that thing, it simplifies the wrist design so much. We'll just put something on in there. Okay. So that means 3 fingers, 3 motors, plus that's 4. Okay. And I'm like, darn it. But I need to get from 23 to, I think 30, well, either 34 or 33. This is where the mystery kind of comes in.
Yeah.
I need to get a couple of more joints in there. And it looks like the thumb actually has that extra degree. Well, whatever you want to call it, the thumb, the middle finger has 1 extra degree of freedom to allow it to spin around like that, whereas the other 2 do not.
Right.
So that appears to be what it is. Thank you very much, John. So we got the hands add 5 more degrees of freedom, but you can. That's 10 more, 23, 33. So it could be that the typo, but it's not a typo, because in one place they showed 43, the other one they showed 34. So where could they be adding 1 more degree of freedom that's in one version of the bot, not the other? And if we go back to the last image that shows where all the motors are, it looks like there's 2 motors in the torso. You see, if you look at the torso there,
they're kind of like all stacked on each other there.
Yeah. And it may be done in such a way that what's right in the belly button area there looks like 2 servos to me, when you could get away with 1 if it's just rotating around. So maybe they put something to actually allow it to lean forward a little bit. That's
gotcha. Yeah.
And maybe that's how they get to 34.
Right. So I think the other thing that's interesting here is that the design wise, they've had to go with here. Let's see if I can find a good shot of this. There we go. They've had to go with external cabling for the hand
for there. Yes.
Which is
for the hands. Yes.
A little less than ideal, because it's just something that can catch on things and stuff like that. But at this point, it looks a little bit cheesy because it looks like it's duct taped on there. So
So it may be it's a very recent development compared to everything else that they haven't optimized that, because it's kind of their first foray into being able to make hands.
Right.
And they've decided again to take kind of the Boston Dynamics approach and come up with more of an engineering solution, rather one that's faithful to humans. So that brings into question how well you'll be able to teleoperate this thing when the hands behave very unnatural.
Exactly.
The thumb's not where the thumb should be. So some questions about that. But again, do you want a bot that's $160,000 or $16,000?
Right.
That's the whole thing. They pulled out a price point and said, we want to build to this.
Yeah.
And why would they want it to be that cheap? This is the thing I don't understand.
Yeah.
Maybe
so real quick though, I mean, the hands, I'm going to guess these are a very early iteration, because they don't look as refined as the rest of the, I mean, that's like square. It looks like just some, boilerplate crap that they got and threw together. So it also looks much more dangerous because that's open in the back. So if it opened up and your finger happened to get caught in there, that's not good cobot design. That's ouch. That's a pinch point.
Right. And this is probably not the $16,000 bot.
No, but I don't know.
16,000 is the one without the hands. Who knows how much this is, whether it's 20, 25, who knows?
Yeah.
In which case it's like, well, what can I do with the bot? Yes.
That was really cool. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what sensitive and impact resistant. I guess that's the whole point. So
well, either that means they have sensors there, or because of all the compliance that they have everywhere in the bot, you can bang it with something hard and you're not going to break the finger off, because you see the finger responds to that.
Yeah.
Which is also good from the standpoint of a cobot, is that you don't want someone to be caught or snagged in there. Right. Be able to push back on the finger, and the finger will open up very easily.
And it looks like they do have some sort of force plates on the thumb and on the fingers to like.
It looks like it. And maybe even the palm. It's hard to tell whether they've got something there.
Yeah. You might be right. That looks like it would be, and that would make sense for the fry pan demo, because it needs to have a good sense of like, of how much weight is on there and everything. So
yes.
Anyway,
so
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe you make up with the lack of 5 fingers by having, sensitivity in the palm, which I'm not sure that we've seen in the other humanoid bots. It seems like it's all in the fingertips. They don't really have anything in the palm.
Right. Oh, also Unifo LM, Unitree Robot Unified Large Model. So it's got some sort of training ability using probably text or language. So that would be what I would guess they're saying there.
And we haven't seen that demonstrated, so we're not quite sure how it works.
Exactly.
We've seen some of the other Unitree bot moving around where it seemed like there was someone with a hand control of some sort that was able to direct it where to move, which is how the robot dog works, just like a drone. You sit around, you got a joystick, you make it go over here, and it figures out how to walk and not fall over and like go up the steps and do all that cool stuff. So you don't have to. You just kind of point in a direction. So it may be a similar thing here, except it's one thing to direct your thing to go here, there, left, right, and everything else. It's something else to say, yeah, go over there, and now I'm trying to show you how to do some sort of dexterous manipulation without having some other telerobotic kit, or can you tell it? So we don't know enough about how this is actually taught. Now,
it definitely says imitation and reinforcement learning. So, we've got
now imagine if they're able to do similar tasks as the figure bot, and you just kind of tell it to do something, and it's $16,000. It's like, holy cow, that's something else. So I don't think it is. And again, I think if you want to talk to that $16,000 question, CERN, I think, had a very good kind of analysis of that price and what it means. And a lot of people think like, holy cow, it's like, are you selling it for less than you can build it?
Right.
So obviously, if they're not losing money, then they have to be able to build it for less than $16,000 or right at it. And if you want to make an adequate profit, are they building this thing for like 10 grand and then everything else to sell it? Yeah. But how much are people willing to pay for this bot?
Right.
And are you leaving money on the table? And I think you're leaving money on the table. Because remember, people were willing to pay for the H1 bot. How much was the H1 bot?
It was 90.
Do you remember?
90, I think.
90,000.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of researchers out there that were able to. Now maybe they realized like, well, the elasticity of the demand curve is such like we're not selling a whole lot of them at 90,000. It's like, okay, then drop the price to 50, or 25, but 16, really?
Yeah,
like,
I know. It seems crazy. It seems absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
So CERN basically said that he was like, unless you're being supported by someone, hint Chinese government, that is just throwing money, which is not the case for Unitree, unless they're just supporting it so that you can just enter a market at such a low price point that you destroy everybody else because you're being artificially supported.
Through subsidies, right?
Yeah, if you have to do this on the free market, you have to build it at a profit eventually. I mean, you can do it at a loss for a while, but the other question, so okay, let's say they can build it for $16,000 or 14 or 13 or whatever it is and make a small profit. What's CERN's really interesting point was, it's like, why do that? If people are willing to pay $50,000 for this robot, then sell it for 50.
Yeah. Yes,
we're seeing. I made a note of like the Cybertruck gray market that's going on right now. I won't even post pictures about it, but if you go on Facebook, there are tons of Cybertrucks that are illegally for sale because Tesla's terms and conditions say you're not allowed to sell it for a year after you buy it, but they're on sale for $140,000, $150,000, $160,000. So the value of the Cybertruck currently is above the retail price, which is exactly where gray markets come in. And this is the kind of thing where you're going to produce a gray market because people will turn around and resell this or subscribe it or, lease it out to people and make money on it. So, there's so easily you can just start leasing this thing and make a ton of money on it. And this was like some thought I had over the weekend. And then this kind of comes out and it's like, well, okay, you finally put it out there. Is that we have been sort of approaching this thing the wrong way. Everyone keeps asking, well, how much will it cost to build a Tesla bot? How much is it going to cost to build figures, stuff like that? Right.
And we're not quite sure. And maybe the question we should be asking is like, how much should it cost?
Yeah.
Meaning what are people willing to pay for it? So you kind of figure the price point and then build the capabilities that just the minimum feature set that's needed to get to that price point, if that's what people want. And they'll accept the fact that, okay, it doesn't have everything I want, but I can now afford it. And the analogy I've used is like, look, you'll never be able to build or sell, maybe you can build, but you certainly won't sell a Lambo for less than $250,000. I'm not sure what they are, $500,000, million, something like that.
Yeah.
So those are very, very expensive cars. And the idea of bringing a Lambo down to 25 is just not going to happen.
Right.
However, we can build a car for $25,000.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have the performance of a Lamborghini and like, the interior with like just all these refined appointments and stuff like that. And so it may come down to it's like, all right, we see there's a demand for these humanoid bots, and we know this is what it is. What do we have to do to build one at that? Let's not come down. Let's start going up. And then you make choices like, oh, does it need a hand? Agility has decided it doesn't really need a full functioning hand. There's plenty of options out there where you don't need it. We take that out of it. We're able to build it for maybe an affordable price. Okay, how fast does it have to walk? What's the battery life got to be? How tall does it have to have? And if you do put a hand on it, does it have to be a 5-digit hand? Can it be a 3-digit? All these different functionalities that you can think about to get to what that price is. So you should really start thinking about what the market's ready to bear and never leave money on the table. Now,
exactly.
What do we think is the fair value for, let's say, a pretty decent humanoid bot that really could do a lot of stuff? Let's say,
plus it can do martial arts. Can do martial arts. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't care about being able
it's
to do martial arts
that was the
or any sort of famous things, but the robot's actually productive. It's able to do useful work in a variety of settings, not all settings, but actually be able to do it. We think we've kind of determined what we think that price is, and what is that, John?
Well, I mean, it's got to be competitive with a human per hour cost, basically, if you just price it out over that time. But
as opposed to leasing, as opposed to price. So the general feeling is it's around $100,000.
Yeah.
So when you talk to most business owners, like, $100,000 is a pretty fair price. I'd even go up to $250,000, but if it's $100,000, no problem.
Yeah.
So if you're selling it for 50, you're putting 50 on the, you're losing $50,000 right there.
Right.
Money you could definitely be getting. So that's kind of a surprise to see it down that low. And again, it's sort of like what Cern's saying is what you're trying to do is destroy the market before there is even one, and put your competitors out of business, because now suddenly they say, oh, there's no way you can compete to that.
Right. Yeah, it puts a chill on the market. So there's a good reason to do that. Now, of course, it says from 16 grand. And so, but I think this version without the hands is probably the 16 grand version. Maybe it's double the price to get the hands because they're complex.
There's going to be import duties. The question is like, where's the market for that? And then there's going to be shipping and handling and all that stuff. So who knows what it ends up being, but still, it's not going to be $100,000.
No, which is, again, from a consumer standpoint, I love it. I'm like, that's fantastic. But I do think that the company itself is leaving things on the table. It's like they could charge more for this currently, at least early on, to get the early.
And I think the other thing that concerns CERN a little bit is sometimes you can get kind of a brand erosion where if you make the thing too cheap, everyone goes, in a sense, Roomba did a pretty good job of that, of ruining the automated vacuum cleaner market by having something which is pretty expensive and really didn't do that good a job.
Yes.
So it's just kind of this cool gimmick and everything else. And so now people actually come out with autonomous vacuum cleaners that do a really, really good job. Most people just say, I've been there, done that, seen that, not interested. So that is one concern, is that you can damage the entire market before you even get started. Or you just give yourself a bad name. It's like everyone else, I'm not going to do it. So they got to be careful if it's doesn't have quite the functionality that people expect.
Right.
Now, at $16,000, I don't think just everyone's going to buy it. It's going to be more or less hobbyists. People who are early adopters are going to understand that this is not going to be
it's a bigger market. At $90,000 is not anything I would even look at. For 16 grand, I'm like, it might be kind of cool.
John, if you're a small business owner,
and
like small factory or something like that, would you be willing to just kind of throw 16 at something like this just to investigate?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think so. And when you think about it, when you hire an employee and you've got to get them like some decent computing resources, stuff like that, that's almost costing you that much by the time you set up the desktops and the screens and stuff like that. You're already throwing a certain amount of dollars. It'd be pretty easy for a lot of corporations to go ahead and buy that and start playing around with it and getting an idea of what the capabilities and functions are. Then they might get a lot of feedback, because they might say, hey, you know what? It's only 4'2", but guess what? We figured out it's the right size. It doesn't have to be any bigger. Right. Because everyone's assuming it's going to be 5'6", and maybe it's like, no, it's like you give some, so they may be looking at it and say, oh, that's kind of right. We like it. It worked well in the office. So they may get valuable feedback from that. And back when industrial robots, in the early 80s were first kind of washing up on our shores, and everyone was looking about it and going crazy. Oh, we've got to put robots into factories. Nobody knew what they were doing. And they went out and they bought these bots and they brought them in, and they had some engineers that were just playing with them for the longest time to try to figure out, what can we do with this darn thing?
Right.
So they may be saying, hey, this is that opportunity to go in there. Yep. The other is, what if this really is able to sort of semi-function in the house? What do you think about that?
I think without hands, it's not going to be particularly useful. So it depends if it can use.
But let's say you could teach it to do some things in the house, maybe some small things. But what if it starts doing a little bit more and a little bit more every day?
No, that's incredibly useful.
And then, do you think that it's like going through and learning tasks from you?
Well, that's the reason,
use as training data.
That's the reason why I think they're selling it for so cheap. One of the reasons is because if you can just flood the market, you get all the data. If it's got a flywheel,
exactly. If it's got just enough capability to be able to do that, and if you get 100,000 out there, 500,000, 1 million,
right,
and kitchens around the world,
and
apartments around the world, houses.
We talked to Bernd from 1X, and he said that, it's about 100 to 1 relationship, or maybe it's 1,000 to 1, but there's orders of magnitude fewer examples in real life that you have to feed it than in simulation. So right, you might have to train it 1 million times in simulation, but only 100 or 1,000 times in real life. And if you can get that data from real life, you can train these things. You can get much faster improvement, and you get that data flywheel really going, which is where Tesla's advantage is right now.
So they may learn quite a bit from it. So again, everyone keeps on saying it's about the data. And so that might be the reason. They might be saying, look, we'll sell it to people at cost. We don't care.
Yeah, exactly. They don't care. All right. So we are going to move on to the next thing right now, and I'll try to put a chapter marker here or something like that. We want to talk about
but it is much faster.
Oops, sorry. She's already talking. So this is Mira Murati. She is the CTO, right? CTO at OpenAI. And a couple of her colleagues. I have chopped this thing down to 10 minutes. There's a bunch of blah, blah, blah. But we're going to talk about OpenAI's announcement, which is GPT-4o, I guess like Hawaii 5.0 or something. And I have to say, I was less than impressed with it. There were an awful lot of people who just seemed to have their minds blown today. And I was like, it's okay. I mean, I just wanted something bigger. And I think they teased that at the end, that there was going to be a frontier model that they're going to be doing sometime soon. But this was more usability. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some really impressive stuff, but so anyway, we'll go ahead and play it. Stop, Scott. It's just kind of chopped up, so you'll see. And I'll leave a link, of course, to the original and the Unitree thing in the description.
GPT-4o provides GPT-4 level intelligence, but it is much faster, and it improves on its capabilities across text, vision, and audio.
Okay, so that's the big thing. So the deal is text, vision, audio, and that's the trick.
And I think the other thing is to remember, this is not GPT-5, this is GPT-4.
Yes.
And
Omni model or something like that.
Now, how do you? The impression I got from this, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that its language model is actually taking audio straight in, or is it tokenizing that? Do you think it's turning it into text?
She talked about how much latency there is with the older version.
Right.
And then they were very unspecific, which was one of the reasons I was less than thrilled with this demo, because I really want to get in some geek weeds. And, OpenAI has gotten so closed and vague about what they do now.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that, because we've talked about this before, is you want to cut out the middleman. Why do you want the text? Because there's so many ways to, I think the best example is that you know that there's two ways to cover a trial. One is you put the cameras in the courtroom and you actually get to see the witness testimony. And the other is you just get the transcript afterwards.
Exactly.
And then you got to read the transcript and understand. And people will tell you, oh, you should have been there. The witness was just so emotional and stuff like that. And you kind of read it and like, oh, there's not much here.
Yeah.
So how do the transcribers put the emotion in there? It's very difficult. Now, I guess there may be some way. Well, from screenplays, a lot of times there'll be little hints on what you want the actor to do, but in the end, it's up to the actor to figure out what the emotion is supposed to be there. And I'm not aware of any like diacritical marks that you can put all over the place to give you an idea of exactly what the intonation is supposed to be and all that.
Right.
And so we know that if you hear spoken language versus written language, and of course we learn language orally before we learn to write it, that's a more natural way. And then, of course, be a much quicker way to process, because you're not like, convert it to text, read text, output text, output language. So it did seem that there wasn't that much lag, and I was expecting that. And I guess my feeling is that there was definitely a lot of hype going in here. So I also was expecting a little bit more, but I was still kind of impressed. But came away from this the same way as the Tesla bot video from like a week ago. It was like, oh, an interesting update, but they really didn't show us anything super new or super exciting. It was more or less like, hey, remember us? We're still out here.
Yeah, exactly.
We're still relevant.
And I mean, one of their big things that they were pushing was the fact that this is going to be free to everybody, whereas I guess GPT-4 is still only available to the subscribers. So,
that's that part I didn't hear. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal, and they were pushing that really hard. But I think what you're talking about with the lag is very important, but also I think that gives us some insight into the emotional content, because towards the end they get into like, how do I feel? Can you read this more emotionally? So clearly there's a lot of training with audio data. And if we go back to remembering large language models trained on text, so just classical large language models that only have access to like text, literal, stuff that you would type in, they are missing so much contextual real world information that is available in the voice. Because, I could say to Scott, like, oh man, I'll call you let's see, what do I say? I'll call you at 5. That sounds like I'm super excited. And it's like, I'll call you at 5. We as humans have a very good interpretation of the differences in the emotional content of those two messages. Whereas in text, like you said, a screenplay is useless. Yeah. It's lost.
Yeah, so it's taken too literal at that point, and you're missing all those other cues. And that's my feeling, is that when you start to do it, then your large language model is truly a language model.
Yes,
as opposed to something which is a text model and will understand nuance and everything else. And then when you start taking that and combining it with the visual, because they did have some visual input in here, which is also interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's the thing, is it's taking in these 3 things rather than one thing, which is just text tokens. Very, very vague about how it's doing it, unfortunately. She'll talk about that in just a second, but anyway.
For the past couple of years, we've been very focused on improving the intelligence of these models. And they've gotten pretty good. But this is the first time that we are really making a huge step forward when it comes to the ease of use. Also brings a lot of latency to the experience, and it really breaks that immersion in the collaboration with ChatGPT.
Okay, so that's a really important part too, is that I'm sure we're all familiar with that, whether you type it or whether you use your phone app and you try to do like the voice. It's just got that long lag, and then because it's, it has to like send the voice data over the internet, then it has to transcribe the data, then it has to read the text, it has to respond to the text, it has to convert that text back into speech and send it back to you. Or at some point, I don't know exactly when the internet part comes in, but that's a big lag. It's 3 or 4 seconds. It's a
big lag. And what's worse is it almost always gets it wrong.
Yeah.
And you're constantly, oh, that's wrong. So I can't even use it to call a proper person out of my phone book.
Right.
I'm
not even talking about, yes.
Yeah. I'm just talking in general, voice assistants. So in the past for me, voice assistants are just so bad at getting it. It's just easier for me to go ahead and type it in because I've been burned by it too much. I've given up.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot of other people feel the same way. Right. So if you can start to rely on this a bit better, especially if the lag isn't there, you'll know immediately it's wrong. So I have all these times that for some reason, I always had to like
interrupt it. That's a really big thing.
You can interrupt it and get the correction really quick. So I was always having this thing that I would ask someone to call Dan. I had a guy in my phone book that was called Dan.
Right.
There was someone else in my phone book called Van.
Oh yeah.
And it was always going for Van. I'm like, what the heck? And it'd be such a long lag, and it would just take so many times. It was like, oh, forget it. So and I would try again and again. And I would go, Dan, and still go, calling Van. And so we know these speech models are really, really bad. Right. And then I'm just wondering if the AI here is a little bit better at sort of understanding the context better, because
and again, if they're actually reading in speech and not transcribing it, but actually interacting with the speech directly, that is a big thing. They just didn't tell us. And I would be very impressed if that was the case. I'm going to get back to the lag in just a second, because when they start the experiments, they said something that disappointed me a lot. But anyway, here, let's see.
With GPT-4o, this all happens natively. GPT-4o reasons across voice, text, and vision.
Okay, so that's the most information we got. That's very unfortunate. It's gone. It reasons across these things.
Before, when I heard that, I thought, they're not converting it to text.
Yeah, I think maybe, but they were so vague about it.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can do that with video interactively too, that's even more impressive.
In some ways,
super high bandwidth.
To me, if that really is the case, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yet they're deadpanning it. They're really like, wait a minute, you should be playing that up more. Right. Or maybe they're just assuming it's going to be obvious from the demo.
I don't know, because I think now I've been watching a lot of Sam Altman interviews recently, and he's been very adamant about kind of slow rolling these things to make it a little bit less, he's like, more frequent things, smaller things, make it less scary to the audience, to the general population. So I'm wondering if part of that thing is just soft pedaling it, but also OpenAI has become so closed about their technology now. It's just unfortunate, because I would have loved to have had some technical demonstration and say, how is this operating? Show me a graph. I mean, I don't need to know the details. I know they're not going to tell me that, but what is what's the signal path from input to output as we're doing this? I would love to at least be able to see that. So we didn't get to see that, unfortunately, but that's as much information as we got. It sounds like maybe it's directly reasoning with these things and not having to transcribe, which would explain the lowered lag.
So I'm taking out a phone.
Okay.
If you are wondering about this wire, it's so we have consistent internet.
Yeah, that was the big thing that disappointed me. I was like, oh, so you're seriously not going to do this with Wi-Fi? I mean, I was like, so every single metric in this entire demo, I don't trust. As soon as he said that, I was like, you've got wired internet connection. That's not fair. That's not the way the use case goes.
Either they're afraid of being hacked.
Yeah. Well, you mean like a DDoS or something where people would just
who knows? You know how those Wi-Fi routers are.
Yeah. I mean, it just disappointed me, because I was like, at least, even if they didn't do it the whole time, if they said, now we're going to unplug it and show you what it sounds like, because it's still like a second lag. It's not instantaneous. And what if it's
kind of like the figure demo? There was a little bit of a lag there as well.
Oh,
and what they tried to do is reduce as much as possible.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But what it means is that they have to send a lot, because that's the thing about audio versus text. Text is like nothing to send. But now you've got to send all the speech, and that's a lot of data.
In video.
Yes. And then the video after that. And so they're probably saying the only way we can push it over really quickly is the best thing is to tie it together.
Right.
But you would think it's like, all right, that's one thing when I have to get on the internet, because I've got to bounce through all sorts of different things. It's like, I mean, your server should be like the room right behind you, right?
Exactly.
You should be able to connect to it directly,
right,
wirelessly or not.
So this was my big disappointment, because I felt like they weren't doing an appropriate demonstration. I feel like in our actual use cases with actual Wi-Fi, which is the way people
actually, let me ask you about that. I don't think I've ever like really connected my phone directly to the internet.
No.
My computer, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, what do you do that with like a USB-C cable? And is that you're telling me that's faster than Wi-Fi? Because, sometimes a good Wi-Fi signal is pretty darn fast, and it's hard to get a wired connection that can compete with it.
Well, if you have gigabit Ethernet, though, it's the ping.
Yeah, but over your USB, sometimes it's a more dedicated. So I'm trying to figure out, like, wait a minute, what kind of internet connectivity can you have into your phone, or do you think that phone is jacked?
Again, like they said, consistency, but also the speed. The latency, the ping is going to be almost like 5 or 6 milliseconds. So as opposed to regular Wi-Fi, which is probably on the order of 30 or 40 milliseconds. So that's going to, anyway. That
might be just enough. Yeah, but again, I'm thinking it's like that's one thing from our laptop when we wire in directly to our routers.
Right.
I've just never had the experience doing it with my phone.
Yeah.
I've always felt that the Wi-Fi and phone is pretty darn quick. It feels like it's almost faster than my laptop. Yeah,
I think so sometimes. But anyway, so I just wish that they'd said, here's a demo with Wi-Fi so you can see, because their Wi-Fi is going to be super fast. So of course they could do it in the best case scenario, but I just don't trust the timing on any of this because of that little caveat there. And they just went right over it like no big deal. But anyway.
Hey, so I'm on stage right now. I'm doing a live demo, and frankly, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Can you help me calm my nerves a little bit?
Oh, you're doing a live demo right now? That's awesome. Just take a deep breath. And remember, you're the expert here.
I like that suggestion.
Okay, so a couple of things there. Number one, there is still a lag. It's definitely not instantaneous. Maybe a half second, 500 or 600 milliseconds from when she first responds. right? Let's see.
About this wired so we have consistent internet. Hey, so I'm on stage right now. I'm doing a live demo. And frankly, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Can you help me calm my nerves a little bit?
Oh, you're doing a live demo right now? That's awesome.
So about a half a second, 500 or 600 milliseconds. So it's not instantaneous. It's still very good. The voice, amazing. Like it's very, it's very chipper, but it's very
I suppose. But at the same time, maybe there was a lag, but I didn't necessarily notice it. It almost felt natural that a lot of times when you're talking to someone and asking for a suggestion, they're not going to respond immediately after you're done. First, we're waiting to make sure you really are done speaking. At the same time, we're trying to, we do think ourselves like, okay, what should I say next?
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like a long lag to me. It kind of felt natural, but you could be right that that's one indication that, and would it be rude to jump in really quickly as soon as a person is done?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm being hypercritical here because it's a demo, but also I noticed there was an interesting like sound in the back. It was playing some music and stuff like that under it, which is really interesting. The voice is a little bit like she's taking happy pills or something. So maybe you can tone it down a little bit. But the other thing is you'll notice throughout the demo that her voice breaks up. It says something and then it drops out. And I don't know if that's a miking issue, if that was a flub in the technology, but it doesn't seem to be listening and hearing interruptions, because I thought maybe because it was a big audience that maybe the audience was interrupting her. So
I thought there were a couple of times where she suddenly stopped because she had been interrupted like a word or a couple of syllables before.
Right.
And it took a little while to catch up.
Yeah. So you hear that several times throughout the demo. The other thing that is not available right now is she won't interrupt you, as far as I can tell. So you know how you have a conversation, and you and I are really good at this. We'll interrupt each other all the time.
John. We were talking over each other all the time.
Exactly. So,
everyone knows, but we see it in the comments. Yeah.
It's only one direction with this. You can interrupt her, but she can't interrupt you. So anyway, just listen to these things as we're going through.
Just take a deep breath. And remember, you're the expert here.
I like that suggestion. Let me try a couple deep breaths. Can you give me feedback on my breaths? Okay, here I go.
Whoa, slow
Yeah, here's where it's breaking.
do a bit there.
Yeah.
Mark, you're not a vacuum cleaner. Breathe in for a count of 4.
Okay.
So you can hear it's chopping, and I don't know if that's just maybe the microphones are cutting out, because mics, I think it might be, I don't know how it's mic'd, because there's noise gating on mics.
Yeah.
Like normally that will cut out anything that's too low. So it might not be the fault of that of Siri.
It could be, but remember he also laughed pretty strongly through that.
Yes.
Whether that was something that's, oh, wait a minute, I have to stop, and then decided to continue.
Right. Yeah. So whatever it is, it doesn't sound particularly perfect at this point. So, but I mean,
it seemed like an exaggerated breathing. I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I guess he's an engineer, not an actor, but I guess we call it hamming it up a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So, well, I mean, it is audio, which is very cool. It's not watching him, it's only listening. And so it's able to hear that. But yeah, that was definitely exaggerated. I don't know what I would have been more interested in from a demo is if he'd been like, not like,
exactly. A more natural kind of, I'm breathing a bit heavy as opposed to something so exaggerated. Yes.
Yeah. So again, he's not hired as an actor, so don't quit your day job.
Let me try again. So I'm going to breathe in deeply and then breathe out.
For 4, and then exhale slowly.
Okay, I'll try again. Breathing in,
cutting, and
breathe out.
That's it. How do you feel?
I feel a lot better. Thank you so much. First, you can now interrupt.
So again, it just felt like it was a little awkward with that whole thing. Do you notice when you can see the screen that when it's a ball, it's not talking. When it's like talking, it has like the sort of.
Okay, I'll try again. Breathing in.
So it's listening.
Breathe out.
That's it.
Yeah. So
how do you feel?
I feel a lot better. Thank you so much. Okay. First, you can now interrupt the model. You don't have to wait for it to finish your turn before you can start speaking. And, you can just butt in whenever you want. Second, the model is real-time responsiveness. So that means that you don't have this awkward 2 to 3 second lag before you wait for the model to give a response. And finally, the model picks up on emotion, right? When I was breathing super hard there, it could tell and it knew, hey, you might want to calm down a little bit. You're kind of running a little bit too fast. So, it really has that capability across the board to perceive your emotion. Not only that, though, the model is able to generate voice in a variety of different emotive styles. And it really has a wide dynamic range. And I want you to tell him a bedtime.
So this is a fun little demo thing where she gets more and more ridiculously over the top.
Yeah. This story definitely bites.
Oh, there it is. There's the dad joke. It had to come in sometime. All right.
And story about robots and love.
Oh, a bedtime story about robots and love? I got you covered. Gather round, Barrett. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Byte. Byte was a curious robot, always exploring.
I started this story, but I want a little bit more emotion in your voice, a little bit more drama.
It's already so.
Got it. Let's add some drama. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Byte.
No, ChatGPT. I really want maximal emotion, like maximal expressiveness, much more than you were doing before.
Understood. Let's amplify the drama. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Byte. Byte
Can
was
you do this in a robotic voice now?
initiating dramatic robotic voice. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Byte. Byte was a curious robot, always exploring new circuits.
Barrett, here, calm down a little bit. Can you end the story, but do it in a singing voice?
And so Byte found another robot friend, and they lived circuitly ever after.
So I'm going to write.
Okay. Oh my gosh, the bad jokes. I don't know. It sounded a lot like Alexa doing things when you ask it to do a bedtime story or something. But I mean, it is very impressive that it's able to raise and lower the drama, the vocal drama and everything. So it's very cool. And the robot voice, of course, was funny. I felt almost like that robot voice was an outtake, not an outtake, but like an improv thing that they hadn't practiced that.
Oh,
before.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. That mirror just suddenly came in there. The thing that was interesting is that even though it was a robotic voice, you could tell the underlying voice was the same.
Yeah.
And
I was
almost expecting it to like turn over to something else that wouldn't even recognize who the original speaker was.
Right.
And I wonder if you could then say, well, we don't want whatever her voice is, but someone else's voice.
Yeah.
And then if everything is done in that person's voice, including the robotic voice.
Right. And the other very impressive part of this part of the demo is the three of them are talking. Mira, of course, has an Italian accent. Or I think I don't know. Anyway, it's either Italian. Yeah, Italian. So, but as they're speaking, they're all cutting in individually, and the ChatGPT is able to handle that. Very elegant.
And know who's speaking. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really impressive stuff. So, all right. So continuing on here.
Down a linear equation on a sheet of paper, and I'll show you. And then I'd love your help working me through it. But importantly, don't tell me the solution. Just help give me hints along the way.
Got it.
Yeah. So
okay, I see it.
No, I didn't show you yet. Just
so I love the flubs. I mean, it's a live demo, so it's cool. So I guess she probably had the camera just facing down on the table or something
on the
like
table,
that.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit over the top, but again, that voice flubbing, again, I don't know whether there was a microphone not picking up properly or whether actually, you know what, maybe did it show the up here on the corner when he said that or not?
Through it. But importantly, don't tell me the solution. Just help give me hints along the way.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
No. Did you see that? It turned back to the circle, which means that actually was ChatGPT screwing up. That was not the microphone. So that's definitely an issue with it. It seems to be cutting out and choppy. And maybe even with that high bandwidth internet, it's still not working very well. So, okay.
I see it.
No, I didn't show you yet. Just give me help along the way. 1 second.
Whoops. I got too excited.
Now that's fun.
I'm ready when you are.
I like that. That was actually really fun.
What equation did I write down there?
Okay.
I see it now. You wrote down 3x plus 1 equals 4.
It's impressive.
Let's
exactly.
work.
So what's the first step I should take to try to solve this?
The first step is to get all the terms with x on one side and the constants on the other side. So what do you think we should do with that plus 1?
Okay, I'm going to try to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
Great idea. Perfect. You have 3.
So I've got to say, the one thing that is, we've been talking about how education is changing and going to change. This is going to change the game. You'll have a very patient, very good tutor, especially when somebody starts building a specific tutoring product built on this. It's going to be incredibly impressive. So
X, and you want to find the value of X. Think about what operation would undo multiplication.
Is it subtraction?
Close, but think of the opposite of multiplication, because 3x means 3 times x.
Okay, I think it's division. Let me try to divide both sides by 3 and let me see what I get.
Bingo! Go ahead and divide both sides by 3.
So ChatGPT, this is what I ended up with. How does this look?
It looks perfect. You've solved it, and x equals 1. Nicely done. How do you feel about solving linear equations now?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not pretty confident I can solve linear equations, but why would you ever need to use this in the real world? I'm really skeptical.
This is a nice change of
That's a fair question. Linear equations pop up in a lot of everyday situations, even if we don't realize it. For example, calculating expenses, planning travel, cooking, and even in business for profit and loss calculations. It's basically a way to solve problems where you need to find an unknown value. Plus,
wow, okay. I have a lot of unknown values in my life. I'm totally convinced I'm going to learn math now.
I love that attitude.
And to give a bit of back.
Okay, so that's just a lot of fun. It's just the sort of flow of it all is really impressive. And the fact that it's able to take in not just still frame images, but video, that's live video feeds.
The video was impressive, yes.
Yeah, and the fact that it's able to do that at such rapid pace. And this is really cool. So I've cut out pieces of this, but just for a note, at the beginning, you can see that the little screen icon is grayed out, which means that this is a desktop app. This is going to be super cool to have hanging around. It can only hear or get copy pasted information in. It can't see anything on the desktop. Later on, he clicks this on and turns on the screen thing, so it's able to see the screen, and then it's able to look at a graph and stuff. So that's the nature of this demo. So this is the desktop version of it. I think this, in my mind, runs a little bit more efficiently than the phone app version, but I don't know. You guys tell me. So
background on what's going on. So here we have a computer, and on the screen we have some code, and then the ChatGPT voice app is on the right. So ChatGPT will be able to hear me, but it can't see anything on the screen. So I'm going to highlight the code, Command C it, and then that will send it to ChatGPT. And then I'm going to talk about the code to ChatGPT. So I just shared some code with you. Could you give me a really brief one-sentence description of what's going on in the code?
This code fetches daily weather data for a specific location and time period, smooths the temperature data using a rolling average, annotates a significant weather event on the resulting plot, and then displays the plot with the average, minimum, and maximum temperatures over the year.
Awesome.
So that's pretty cool.
A bit verbose.
Yeah, a bit verbose, but I mean, that's pretty good. I think he asked for a one-sentence description.
One sentence. Yeah. A lot of comments in that sentence.
It was a Faulkner sentence. But anyway, but very, very impressive. And again, I just feel like it runs just a little bit more efficiently. But again, that was a copy the code in, paste it into, or I think as soon as you put it on the clipboard, it has access to it. So, but anyway, very, very
Thanks so much. And in the code, there's this function foo. Can you describe to me what the plot would look like if I had versus didn't have this function?
Sure. The function foo xy takes in a data frame x containing temperature data and a window size y for calculating the rolling mean. It smooths the average temperature, minimum temperature, and maximum temperature columns by applying a rolling mean over the specified window.
Okay, ChatGPT. I'm sharing with you the plot now. I'm wondering if you can give me a really brief one-sentence overview of what...
This is where we've switched, and so you can see that the monitor now is like dark colored. So actually ChatGPT has access to the visuals here, which is pretty cool. So it can see your desktop.
Through the phone camera or?
No, I think it actually has direct access. So like, I don't know, PC or Mac, whatever this is, but so it's actually like looking at the screen currently, which is very cool. So it's doing some sort of screen grab activity, and you can see that here because it's like, you can see like a view that it's got of the screen. So that is super cool that has access to that now, and it's able to work visually off this. Also note that they have correct temperatures. It's in centigrade.
You see.
Plot displays smoothed average, minimum, and maximum temperatures throughout 2018, with a notable annotation marking a big rainfall event in late September.
Fantastic. I have another question for you. Which months do you
see that before? Because it was actually hidden by the, but like here up here, you can
the rainfall event. Where was that?
It was like, it's hidden.
Oh, you can see it in the smaller image that something is annotated, but not in the bigger one. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So that's very cool. Yeah, they should have put this thing over here. So anyway, very, very impressive.
Throughout 2018, with a notable annotation marking a big rainfall event in late September.
Fantastic. I have another question for you. Which months do you see the hottest temperatures, and roughly what temperatures do those correspond to?
The hottest temperatures occur around July and August. The maximum temperature during these months is roughly between 25 degrees and 30 degrees.
Bot Gaskar wants to know.
Okay, so now we've gone over to but that was the demo itself. These other pieces are actual live questions from X. So these are user questions. So these are not pre-scripted or anything like that. So very cool. But anyway, the visual aspect, I felt like the desktop version was working more efficiently, a little bit better than the phone version. But anyway, so now we get translation and one other one.
If GPT-4o is capable of real-time translation, Mark, you want to try this one?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
I speak Italian, so we can just do English Italian.
Let's try to do English Italian. Sure, let's do it.
How's your day going?
I'm doing great. So I would like you to function as a translator. I have a friend here who only speaks Italian, and I only speak English. And every time you hear English, I want you to translate it to Italian. And if you hear Italian, I want you to translate it back to English. Is that good?
Perfetto.
Mark, io mi chiedo se le balene potessero parlare, cosa ci direbbero?
Mike, she wonders if whales could talk, what would they tell us?
They might ask, how do we solve linear equations?
Potrebbero chiederci come risolviamo le equazioni lineari.
Sicuramente sì.
Certainly yes.
Great. Looks like it works.
Can you tell?
So that was really interesting that you heard. Remember when everybody gave that figure demo a big poo-poo because they said it sounded like the ums and the kind of chuckling and stuff? Right there, you just heard it do that. It was like, it gave a little chuckle about that. So, clearly Figure was using something like this when they were doing their demo. So, yeah, anyway. And then
what you're feeling just by looking at your face.
Yeah. The emotions.
Barrett, you want to give this one a try?
Absolutely. Let's try it out. Hey, ChatGPT.
Hey there. What's up? How can I brighten your day today?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to show you a selfie of what I look like, and then I'd like you to try to see what emotions I'm feeling based on how I'm looking.
Sounds like a fun challenge. Go ahead and show me that selfie, and I'll put my emotional detective hat on.
Okay, so here's me. So what kind of emotions do you think I'm feeling?
It seems like I'm looking at a picture of a wooden surface.
Oh, yeah.
So this is great. I love the little flubs because they reveal so much. So clearly she had like video of it sitting on the table or, or something like that. And so, but that's just it's kind of beautiful.
They somehow messed up the live feed or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, no, but it's really good because you can see with that flub that it's actually like looking at something and he's able to instantly correct it, which in my mind is better than just a completely canned demo that doesn't have any kind of live stuff. But yeah, so it corrects like right away, but that was just a really nice insight into the way that it was thinking about or seeing things.
You know what? That was the thing I sent you before. Don't worry, I'm not actually a table. Okay, so take another look.
That makes more sense.
Really cool.
Oh, pretty good joke. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. It looks like you're feeling pretty happy and cheerful with a big smile and maybe even a touch of excitement. Whatever's going on, it seems like you're in a great mood.
Over the next few weeks, we'll be rolling out these capabilities to everyone. Today has been very much focused on the free users and the new modalities and new products, but we also care a lot about the next frontier. So soon we'll be updating you on our progress towards the next big thing.
All right, so that's what we got. So yeah, a lot of really cool stuff. But the most exciting thing to me was I was like, oh, the next frontier models. When's that coming out? Because that's what I really want to talk about. But I think what this is, there wasn't anything particularly amazingly new, but it was the efficiency and the sort of end-to-end ability of this of ChatGPT to like just work across the modalities without a lot of lag. So again, my concern is that was with it's wired, wired Ethernet into the network. So it's like, it might be slower than that in real life.
So I guess overall, my feeling when doing it, and because I texted this to you right away, is that we were talking about cold opens, and what's the most famous cold open out there? It's Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm like 50% odds that probably this is going to be the cold open for Saturday Night Live, because it just felt so much like it. Some of the things. And I could see like right at the end, they're going to kind of go on, and the audience is going to believing it really isn't, and then someone's finally going to announce, live from New York, and it's going to be the voice that was going on. And it's actually going to be the host or something like that. So the whole time there really was like a man behind the curtain. It was just something about that the way they decided to do the presentation. I know they're trying to make it feel like more intimate and, in this isolated space, but I'm sure people are going to have fun lampooning this for quite a while. And I think SNL definitely will do it this weekend.
You just made me realize that there will come a day when there will be a bot or ChatGPT will host Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
That's a scary,
maybe
scary thought. That is a scary thought.
Or maybe that's what they end up doing is like, they look there and the audience thinks that, and it's just basically they will hold the phone right up to the mic and let it actually, it's like that. So who knows? They might have some fun with it.
That'd be pretty cool. I actually really love that idea. That's actually making me, it's funny because right now it would be a lampoon and it would be a joke, but I don't think it's going to be
a joke within the joke. Yeah. The fact is that actually everyone thinks that the person was cheating the whole thing, but the reality is the person was cheating because the person was using the AI to do their job so I think you could get one of the kind of real meta kind of things going on in here. So anyone
layers
SNL sitting out there, here's some ideas to play with.
Okay. So I know we've been talking for forever. In 2 sentences, how do you relate these two announcements, or do they have anything to do with each other? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I think, I don't know, would it be Canny Valley and Uncanny Valley, or is it an Uncanny Valley? I mean, it almost passed the Turing test there, right? And it wasn't done in a way that was kind of creepy or anything like that. And maybe that's the whole idea of the slow rollout, is that we want everyone to get comfortable enough with it that we kind of accept it.
But so what does that have to do with G1 though? Like, can you think of
G1, I guess, is also a bit similar in that they could have gone uncanny like Boston Dynamics when they get up off the floor, but they decided that we'll get up off the floor naturally. We're not going to freak anyone out here. We want this thing to feel like it belongs in the house, and we'll show off a little bit to let everyone know we can kind of do these things, but in more of an entertaining way. I think it's what I appreciated with Unitree is that they weren't like doing blatant knockoffs or copying of anyone. They were more or less almost trolling, a really clever kind of way of doing it, as opposed to saying that, we have to copy. And that's the true kind of Chinese culture, is that the idea is that you don't copy, you improve. You can only improve on what someone else has. So they're a serious, legitimate bot manufacturer. There's a lot in China. It's hard to tell who the winners or losers are, but I'm pretty confident at the end of the day, Unitree is going to be one of the winners.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're very impressive, and they're building quickly. And I think they've got, it's a weird thing to say. I'm not trying to, I hope this is racially sensitive, but there's kind of a Far Eastern, like, kind of idea of cuteness that's involved. And I think the Uncanny Valley thing with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, you're right. It's bridging that. It's feeling natural enough that it doesn't feel creepy or anything anymore. And with these robots, they're making them, like, the form factor is cute enough that they're not scary. It's like, it's silver and everything, but it's not Terminator silver. It's got like a cute little head, so they're crossing
and it's not taller than you. I mean, there were just a lot of things about it that felt kind of friendly and inviting enough that you would be willing to bring it into your house and not be that afraid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
the hands are a little freaky, but you know, you kind of get over that a little bit and realizing, well, it's a $16,000 bot. That's how it goes.
Yeah. And again, I think, you know, you mentioned that, and I think I agree with you that those are probably Gen 1 hands or Gen 0.5 hands or something, and they'll probably improve over time. So they will look better, a little more refined, rounded shape or something like that. But again, if it's 20,000, 24,000 for the bot with the hands, I would accept that. I'd be like, okay, that's okay. It's a pretty cheap bot. So you know, that's great.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you know that it's gonna cost a certain amount, but you may find enough utility out of it to inform you on what's going on. I'm sure a lot of companies are going to buy it just to reverse engineer it. It's just tear it apart and find out how they're doing this stuff.
Do you think the 4'2", if that's the height, do you think that's tall enough to be able to function reasonably? Like it wouldn't be able to get into my top loading washing machine. It would have to like
that's going to be some of the things. And the question is where it's going to be used. Right. And you know, in some factory settings that may or may not be acceptable. Or maybe all right, because a lot of times they're designed to be able to handle a different range of individuals. And like I'm saying, the arms seem to be almost, what would you say, 50 percentile kind of length on the arm, because they were naturally a little bit longer than you used to for something that would be 4'2". So they may be kind of looking at that and just saying that, well, part of it is that if you make it too tall, it's more unstable. So there's like a lot of advantages to being a lot shorter. You bring the center of gravity down, and everything else, a lot of other costs down. So
and the bill of materials is way less too.
Yeah, the bill of materials is different, and they did a very good job of refinement there. And again, you know, if they were inspired by some other designs, that's all right, because we kept on talking about you got to do something about the shoulders not being straight out to put kind of an angle in that, and they were probably considering the same thing. And it's not like they said, oh, Tesla's putting it on that angle, we've got to do the same way. They probably were like leaning towards that way, and then they tried to figure out what the torso is going to go, and then probably someone's like, darn it, the thing looks exactly like Tesla. And then we're like, so what? You know, it's like we worked in design, that's what the design told us, and that's what it is.
I mean, at some point it's like Airbus accusing Boeing of stealing or Boeing accusing Airbus. It's like an airplane looks like an airplane.
They've had for a while. I mean, if you look at the Unitree head design, that's been around for a while, and it just turns out if you look at it straight on with what's on there, it's like, well, it looks a lot like the Tesla bot. But you could argue it's like, no, the Tesla bot looks a lot like them, because you know, the H1 bot kind of had something like that. So I just think there's a couple of viewpoints of it that give it that impression's the same, but it's really only like the torso looks like the Tesla bot, but the arms are still very different.
Yeah, and
the legs are definitely very different. They're not copying that. That's their own inspiration. Like I say, they modified the pelvis a little bit because it's their second or third generation going through their understanding that. Maybe they listen to our videos and like, you know, our suggestions are going ahead and do that. But I think it's the same thing, is that they looked at you know, some of the other companies that are doing it, like P&D. I guess I gave them lots of praise because like, yeah, that's exactly what you need to be doing. And I can't believe they copied Boston Dynamics that quickly. Okay. It's not like, you know, 2 weeks ago they said, oh, let's come up with a brand new bot. You know, it's like, no, they've been working on it. They've been refining that. Now, maybe they looked at the Boston Dynamics video and said, oh, we got to get up off the floor and stuff like that, just because that's kind of a thing now. And let's troll them on this. Okay. So I'm completely fine with that. So there's like blatant copying and there's satire. Okay.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've done, I think, a pretty good satire in there.
Yeah. I'm reminded of, gosh, it was years ago, back when people used to do dance-offs, and it's like, I feel like we're doing a robot dance-off. It's like, I can get up like this. It's like, I can get up like this. How can you get up? So anyway, cool. Okay. Well, we have talked for a long time about this, a couple of very exciting announcements. The world is moving towards embodied AI, because I think that we're seeing even OpenAI moving that direction with their GPT-4o, because it's becoming more embodied, because it's taking in actual data rather than just text.
And now it's like it's really embodied in your phone.
Yeah, I know, that's true. Yeah, but I'm just saying it's actually taking in the real world now. That's my idea. It can't yet act on the real world. It doesn't have
if you're taking that in, actions are then like the next logical step. You get to that much closer to it.
And they're working with Figure already, and probably some other companies. So they'll get the action out part of it, no problem at all. So very, very cool. All right. Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. Definitely let us know in the comments what you think. Follow Scott on X. Make sure you do that. He's going ballistic 5 there. You've been looking at it for like an hour and some odd minutes, so you should know by now.
And to everyone that's out there, remember to join our human bots community on X.
Yes. And also
we're one of the fastest growing communities on X right now.
We are. Okay. And go to the Tesla Takeover Michigan if you're in
and that as well.
Yes, definitely do that. All right. Okay, everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.